right, this 1938 D2 wide gauge.
Okay.
I got a call from a friend of mine that had told me that her one of her friends had called her and that they had the first D2. And I said, oh, come on now. It might be the first one that her dad owned or whatever, but it certainly couldn't be the first one. And so, but I thought, this is about 8 o'clock in the morning. I thought, well, I better not mess around too much. So I started calling the lady. By about 11 or 12 o'clock, I'd finally gotten a hold of her. And she said, yeah, you can come out and take a look at it. So 12:30, about 4 hours into it, I went out and took a look at this tractor. Take a look at all the serial numbers, and sure enough, it was 5J number 1. And I was pretty happy to find it. But I work in Peoria, and this tractor was in West Peoria, about a mile away from the airport. So just right there, kind of where you never would have expected it to be.
Now tell me, it's one of those legendary tractors in a barn that you drive by every day.
Yeah, it was similar to that, it was actually in a very residential area. It was in the lady's garage, her and her husband, and it was in their garage, which was kind of back down a nice, pretty steep slope, and way back in the back of the garage, their grandpa had owned it, and he had used it out on the farm and for years and years, and eventually had brought it in to town and said, hey, you kids want to keep this, one of these days you're going to want to sell it, you know, and make a little money off it, or you might want to have it, you know, whatever, but they decided to sell it, and just the most obscure place you never would have thought it was there in the middle of town.
Did Grandpa buy it new?
Their grandpa, I don't think he had bought it new. No, the story was he was kind of a machinery jockey, kind of a trader, and he had a little bit of an acreage up about an hour north of Peoria. So he traded for this tractor at some point in time, you know, after its first life, you know, say back in the 50s or 60s. Used it up there on their farm, maintaining the road and pulling a few trees out now and then, and then decided he'd bring it back in town and parked it, and there it was.
Tell me about the seat cushion.
Oh, I talked to Mr. John Hahn about that. You know, the old seat cushion, of course, was in pretty bad shape, so we needed to get a new seat cushion, and John and I worked through it, and we decided we ought to bring attention to the fact that it is the first wide gauge D2 made. So we had Mr. Hahn build us a special seat cushion for it.
Now you said first wide gauge. They made D2s before this?
Yes, they made a wide gauge and a narrow gauge D2. The narrow gauge was the 3J serial number, the wide gauge was the 5J serial number. And what we had found out was that through a little research, this little company down in Peoria, that the narrow gauge tractor was actually produced somewhere between a half a month and a month before the wide gauges were. And the only records that Caterpillar has on that is accounting records. They didn't keep track of when they shipped each serial number, but they did keep track that in March 1938 we shipped 15 D2s. That was the super duper accounting that they had back then. They just counted how many tractors went out the back door at the end of the month.
Well, they didn't have computers. What can I say?
They didn't have computers, so.
What's your name again?
Sam Meeker.
Sam Meeker.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
So.
And that was Blake here with you?
And that is Blake. Yeah.
Super. Well, thank you for bringing this tractor.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.